Hey, Chris here. Welcome everybody. Thanks so much for coming by. We're going to have a wonderful time here. We're going to be painting a landscape painting. We're going to do some trees, some distant beautiful purple mountains. We're going to do a couple buildings in this middle distance area. As you can see, this is our finished painting here. We're going to go step by step through this painting. We'll do the pencil sketch first, then we'll get our first wash on. This is a glazing technique painting, so you're really going to enjoy this. This is a really fun glazing technique style painting where we're going to do all the lighter washes first across the whole watercolor paper. Then after that dries 100%, then we come back and we do our darker darks. So this is a real fun painting to do. The glazing technique is really, just a great overall technique. Many great artists use the glazing technique. So let's have fun with it. We'll show you how to do it step by step as we go. And so give us a couple seconds. We'll come back. We'll get our pencil. We'll start doing our pencil sketch, getting everything laid out on our paper here, and then we'll continue on through the video, and you'll see how much fun it is to do this. No stress. Have a good time with it, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're getting back here. We're getting back into business. We are going to create our beautiful landscape scene here with some beautiful trees. We're going to show you exactly how you can create a beautiful landscape painting with gorgeous trees, maybe some distant buildings in the distance, some mountains. You're gonna find that your landscape paintings can take on a whole new feel, a whole new energy as we come along here and you join along, and we're going to create it together. We're going to do a slow process of taking our time and just sketching it out first with our pencil. We have a nice pencil here. We're going to use a pencil. We're going to sketch out what we're going to do. We're going to plan it out on our paper. We're using Arches rough paper. Arches rough paper is a great paper to use for landscape paintings because you can get some really beautiful textures with your trees, with your mountains, with your ground, with your grasses, your fields, your mountains. Arches rough paper is great. You can also use Fabriano. Fabriano rough paper is also a phenomenal paper you can use for your landscape paintings. But I do definitely suggest using rough paper. And there's a lot of great papers out there. And there's also some really good student grade papers you can use. So it's up to you. You can choose whatever paper you like to use. I tend to I use Arches a lot, Fabriano a lot. I use Buckingford paper. That's a great rough paper. You can buy Buckingford paper. So there's a lot of great papers out there, but those are my favorites. And let's get started here. So we're going to do a beautiful landscape. We're going to do some trees, some distant mountains, some distant hills, maybe a distant building. Let's try it out. So I started out a little bit here before I turned on the camera. And of course you saw the finished painting, so please work from that finished painting you saw in the beginning of the video. And then I would say watch the video full through. So you'll see me sketch everything. Then after sketching everything, doing the sketch, you can also watch the painting portion of this video, then go back to the beginning and pause, and you can work from the finished painting at that point. Or the end of the video has the finished painting as well, so it's up to you. So let's say we're going to do, let's take a quick assessment of how we're going to lay out our landscape painting right now. We're going to use the principle of bringing the ground level, the horizon line, the ground level is going to be about 1/4 of the way up from the bottom of the painting. So if this is halfway on our paper, 1/4 of the way is going to be our ground level, our horizon line where we see the mountains and the trees and the distant hills and maybe a couple buildings or a church in the distance. We'll create something as we go. But 3/4 of the painting up this way is going to be all sky. So that's the main thing you want to really key in on when you're doing your landscape paintings is where's your horizon line going to be? Where is your ground level going to be? So this is our ground level. Again, we said we're going to go a quarter of the way up from the bottom. So basically we have 1/4 up from the bottom. That's our ground level here. And then the rest of the paper is our sky. And there's going to be some trees and mountains and things above this a little bit, but this is basically our horizon line, our ground level. And this will be our foreground here in the very bottom of the painting. Okay, so now that we have that set up here on our painting, now we're going to say, all right, let's make a few areas of importance. Let's get our tree. Let's do a large tree or two right in the middle of this painting. So let's go about here, which is not halfway. It's a little bit so our large tree here is going to be not quite halfway, but a little bit off center. So we're going to put our main large tree a little bit off center. Center of our paper is about here, and we're just going to slide it over a little bit to the left, and we'll make our tree here. And we'll just make our tree up here. We're going to make a couple limbs. We're using our pencil here. I'm using a Statler pencil. Statler makes great pencils. These are the Mars Lumograph pencils. They're blue. They're really easy to find online if you want to buy them. I buy them in the large pencil sets where there's about 10 of them in a tin. So there's a tin of about 10 of them all together, and they come in all different hardnesses of lead. So this is a softer lead. So I can get some really good darks with this. But those are really, the Statler Mars Lumograph pencils are really fantastic. If you buy a tin of those, you'll get really hard lead as well as soft lead, a whole range of beautiful pencils. And you can try them all out, see how you like them. Okay, so now we're going to continue on here. And I'm just going to do some pencil lines to give me indications of where I'm going to put my tree limbs and leaves on this tree. So I think that's good. I'm going to go a little bit more leaves over here on the right, and maybe a little less leaves over here on the left. And the tree is going to sort of be, maybe let's say the wind over here on this painting is going to be coming this way. So I'm going to make that tree feel like it's kind of, the wind is carrying it this way. So we're going to have a little bit of that feel of the flow of the branches and the leaves and things going a little bit to the right, just this way a little bit. Then we're going to come down here. Let's do some bushes over here. So I'll put some bushes over here. A little bit of some bushes and trees. And I'm going to do some distant mountains over here like so. Hopefully you can see that. I'll draw it a little darker so you can see that. So we have some distant mountains over here. And then I just go right across with the mountains in the distance. We have a tree over here, and we have some bushes over here, and then maybe maybe over here we're going to have a building. Maybe there's a church over here in the distance. Let's make a church style building like that. I'm just making some indications of some buildings over here. There's a church. And over here we have some more bushes and some trees. And the fun of this is a simple, gorgeous landscape painting. A nice large tree right in the center where we're going to kind of show you how you can get a gorgeous tree right in the center of your painting. Rendered simply, not much effort. It's just the matter of practicing the technique a little bit and you'll get it. It's real simple. We'll show you how to do it. We'll do a couple practice runs on some practice paper first, and then we'll go in and we'll do it here. And we'll also show you that technique of doing a little practice run before you put in your subject matter in your painting. So we're going to do that. I hope you're excited. I hope you're really excited about this. Let's take a break. Maybe I'll just do a little bit of indications of some lines here in the painting, like that. There's some lines in the painting, some shadows. Okay, let's do that. And then let's do some, just a little bit of indications of some clouds. Some happy clouds up in the sky. But let's have fun with this. Don't get stressed. We're going to show you how to do everything step by step. And also, too, please, if you're new, there's a subscribe button right down here on the right-hand side in the screen. If you tap on that subscribe button, fantastic. I'll be very thankful that you subscribe. You'll also hit the notification bell and put all notifications. This way, each time I make a new video, you're going to get it. It's going to be notified in your cell phone or your computer. You'll know we just made a new video. And this way, you can follow along with us. How else are you going to learn these great techniques in watercolor if you don't follow along with us? So, does that make sense? You have to keep coming back every week and following along our videos here to get those really key ideas, the key techniques and information so that you can create better watercolors and have a lot more fun with your watercolors. You're going to have much more fun, have a great time. You'll feel a lot of joy with your watercolors if they're getting better. So if you just keep following along with our techniques and our process here, you're going to have a better time, a more fun time with your watercolors. You're going to be happier. So keep on coming back. Let's take a break. I always take breaks. You know that. Those of you that follow me on a consistent basis, you know I'm always taking breaks. And then everyone that's new here, always remember, take some breaks. Get your drawing done, take a break, and then you come back and you start painting. Hopefully you'll follow that process that we always do here. And I just want to thank, too, everyone that comes here on a weekly basis that's been following me for years and years. Thank you so much. I really thank you for all the great comments and all the praises and compliments. You really keep me stoked for coming back and painting week after week, month after month, and year after year. So really, you give me the energy to come back and paint for you each week, each month, and year after year. It's exciting. YouTube's a great place to be. I'm happy to be here. We'll come right back in just a few minutes. We'll start our painting and we'll kind of describe the next process, the next step of maybe practicing a little bit of some brush strokes before we go in and do our painting, so that you kind of have a little bit of a practice run before you go in and start using your fancy paper and getting that finished painting going. Okay, let's take a break and we'll be right back. Okay, hey everyone, we're back. Hey, we took a break. We're having some fun here. We're doing some landscape painting. We have our landscape all set up here. We drew our tree in here. We did our horizon line across the paper. We did a couple buildings, maybe a church, a couple buildings, distant mountains. We have everything set up now. What's the next step? I'll tell you, you could just jump right in and start painting, but sometimes we're rusty. Sometimes I'm rusty with what I'm doing. Maybe I haven't painted a landscape in maybe like 2 or 3 months or maybe a half a year. So what do I want to do? Well, I want to first kind of like practice a little bit on my techniques on, let's say, my tree foliage here. So let's try that. So I have this leftover paper in my bin in my studio. I'm going to take it, flip it over so I can reuse my paper. I just use the back of my paper. So I always try to use the backs of my paper when I'm doing my watercolors and I'm practicing or doing a dry run. I use some of my leftover paper or the backs of my paper where I've done other paintings that maybe I'm not really, it's not like I'm going to put it in a frame and, put it in a gallery showing or something like that. They're just paintings that I leave in my studio. I leave them in stacks, and then I use my paper, so I can use the back of the sheet. So I'll take that, I'll do that. Then I will grab some tape, and I'll just do one strip of tape to the top of the paper just so it doesn't move around. You don't want your paper moving around when you're painting. You always want to have your paper, down good with some tape around it. And then if you're just doing a practice run like this, even you'd want to add a little bit of tape on the top of the paper just so you have the paper is, somewhat secure, pretty good. Okay, there we go. Then we will grab our brush here. Let's use our Raphael brush. So I'm going to use a Raphael brush here, and we're going to take some burnt umber, like that, some sap green, some raw umber, like that. That might be good. We're practicing now. Let's practice now when we create some trees for a landscape. Let's remember, find the best trees you can find by searching watercolor trees, watercolor landscapes. You go online, Google, use your internet. The internet is a great tool for research. What you would want to do is find your favorite trees that you like, you can look, research, find some trees that you find online, watercolor trees. So you would type in watercolor trees, landscape watercolors, watercolor landscapes, Google search, Yahoo search, whatever it is. Search some stuff online, see some paintings that you see online. Use my painting as well. You're going to use my painting, of course, too, if you like the way my trees look and how they come out and turn out on my painting. Use those. That's what I do. And then basically, I'm just going to do a practice run here so that when I do my finished painting, when I put in my trees for my finished painting just below this one, so I'm just doing a practice run. This is my finished paper we're working on here. I take a practice sheet of paper and I just try to do maybe a little bit of I just draw a little bit of a trunk of a tree, maybe a couple lines just to have like that, and then that's all. I just need a little bit of a trunk of a tree, and then I'm ready to practice a few brush strokes. So we took some burnt umber, we took some raw umber, we mixed it around, maybe a little bit of burnt sienna. Now we're going to take the brush and we're going to, instead of just holding it like normal, like this, we're going to hold it like this. So you can see how my hand, I'm holding the brush like this. You could hold it like this, but it's a little easier to scrub the paint on for the tree by holding the brush like we're showing you here, by holding the brush like this. Then what we're going to do is we're going to just scrub it in a circular motion. There you have it. Then we do the trunk of the tree, like so. Then we can grab our needlepoint brush. So we just did you could also do a little bit of finger painting if you want, like that, to get your lighter shades of some of the leaves and things like that. Then we take our needlepoint brush, add a little bit of a darker of French ultramarine blue and Prussian blue to that brown to get a darker color going, darker tonal value. And then we just do some fine, and I take my handle, I hold my handle really up high like this, and then I hold this up really high above the paper, and then I just do this. Add some limbs to this, and that's all you have to do. Can you see that? It's really simple. You're just going with your sap green, burnt umber to get a nice brownish green. Then you're holding the brush like this versus like this. You're going to flip your hand around and hold the brush like so that you can get really close to the paper and just scrub on in a circular motion to the left like this. Here and there, you don't want to fill in everything. You want to leave a lot of those white gaps so the birds can fly through like that. And that's all. You leave lots of white paper in between as you're doing your circular motion like this. Rinse off the brush. Then you grab your needlepoint brush with a little bit of water on it. Burnt umber, French ultramarine blue. We're going to use some Prussian blue, some burnt sienna, a little bit of sap green. Good dark. And then we hold the brush up high like so, like this, up high, and then you're going to do your branches, just nice and loose, flowing up from the bottom. So all you have to remember is you're flowing upwards with your branches, like so. A couple go down here and there, and that's it. All right, so we practiced a few trees here first to get back into the swing of things, because always remember when you're doing watercolor paintings, sometimes you might be doing some seascapes, boats, water. Maybe you're doing flowers for a couple weeks. Then all of a sudden, like 2, 3, 4 months, even a half a year later, you're going to try doing a landscape painting. You might have to do a couple practice runs before you go in and start painting on your paper. So this is my really good Arches rough paper. I want to make sure I'm using some practice paper first to just get back into the swing of things with how am I going to do my trees here and my mountains. Mountains are pretty simple, but the trees might be a little bit more challenging. So I just remember to myself, how am I going to do my trees again? I take my brush, I spin my hand over the top of the brush like so, choke up on the brush a little bit, and then I'm doing my circular motions to the right, and I'm hit and missing around the tree shape, and I'm not filling in everything. I'm leaving white spaces, white paper as I go, and I'm just trying to generally get a shape of a tree like that. Once I get that in, I get my needlepoint brush, pick up paint, hold the needlepoint brush up like this on the handle, high up, hold it high up above, and then we just get, maybe we make the trunk of the tree thick, like so. Then as we go up, thinner branches, we just use the very, very tip of this needlepoint brush, just like that. Here and there, not everywhere, just a couple indications of some branches. And we have the bottom of the tree like that. We put down the bottom of the tree with the land, the grass, like that. So now we've practiced 3 trees. We have it. Let's take a break. You know me, I like to take breaks. I'm going to take a rest, sit down for a few minutes. I might watch some YouTube videos right now for about 5-10 minutes. And we'll leave this here, and then we'll come back, we'll lift this up off, and we'll start working on our finished arches rough paper. We'll do a gorgeous tree and some landscape features, some mountains, a church maybe, or a couple buildings in the distance, and a sky, a beautiful sky wash. And you'll see we're going to do a gorgeous painting, quick, easy. We're going to have a lot of fun. And always remember, we want to have fun with our watercolors, have a good time with it, don't stress over it. And that's all that I always say. Have a good time, enjoy your watercolors. If it's too stressful, then we'll find a way. If you find your watercolors are too stressful, you're having a hard time, please email me, please leave me a comment about that, and we'll talk about it. I'll give you some hints, some helpful hints, because there's no reason to get too stressed over watercolor. We're trying to have a fun time here and have a good time, enjoy ourselves, make this a joyful part of our life, doing our watercolors. We all have to go to work, and we have our full-time jobs, and we have to deal with stress there in our lives and so forth. So let's make our watercolors joyful and happy. So I'm going to take this here off, and we're going to get ready. We'll come back after we take a break, and we'll create our beautiful landscape here. Okay, so we'll be right back. All right, we're back. We practiced our tree painting techniques just a second ago. We took a break. Now we're coming back. We have our finished arches rough paper. We're going to start painting. We already did our pencil drawing, so that's all set. I'm going to take my Raphael brush. It's a number 6 Raphael brush. You know what? I'm going to actually upsize this. Let me find a little bit of a larger brush. I'm actually going to use a mop brush. This is a number 0 mop brush. And this is an Alvaro Castanet mop brush. I'm going to use that. It's a number 0. I have quite a few. I have about 5 or 6 mop brushes by Alvaro Castanet, different sizes. I have really large ones when I work on large paper. So if I'm using a large, like 18 by 24 painting, I'll use this number 10 mop brush. And again, I buy all of Alvaro Castanet's paintbrushes because they're absolutely great quality, and I love the way they look with the red brushes. I love the red color, and they last forever. I've had this for, again, 4 or 5 years, this mop brush, and it's still like brand new. So these are the brushes I use. I just like to share with everybody what brushes I use. I also use, of course, the Raphael brush. We'll use that one in a second. That's a number 6. We'll use that in a few seconds or so. But let's use this mop brush here, and we're going to do our sky wash. Let's do a sky wash purple. So let's get some purple on our palette here. Some water, get some good amount of water. Let's do this in a glazing technique. So we're going to use a glazing technique here on this painting, which means we're going to really we're going to do cerulean blue, burnt sienna, cerulean blue, purple. Up here, let me make a little bit of cadmium orange. And then we're going to use some French ultramarine blue up here. Also some Prussian blue. So we're going to do plenty of water on this sky wash. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to empty my water out of my bucket. Right now my bucket, you can kind of see the water's a little bit murky. It's a little bit greenish. We've been doing some painting. Let's get some fresh clean water in there. So we'll pour some fresh clean water in the bucket here, like that. Then what I'm going to do is, since we're doing a glazing technique, the best way to do it is add a little bit of fresh, clean water onto the paper, but not everywhere. Hit and miss. Add a couple spots here and there. So I'm just wetting my mop brush, my number 0 mop brush, and just add some water here and there, up high, but not everywhere. But just add some water to the paper. so we get that real beautiful watery look. Lots of water. Slosh it on. I'm going to put a lot of water here on the bottom of the painting, and then I'll just take more water and flow it right down onto the ground area, the foreground. And we're going to take our washes and just, we're going to cover the whole paper. So let's go with our blue first and purple, like that. We're going to flow it down like this here, like that. Have a good time with it. We're going to use some of that cadmium orange too, so we're going to add some cad orange, put some orange in it here and there with the purples and the blues, and then toward the ground level, closer to the horizon line, let's add more cadmium orange, like that, across the way here, like that. Leave some white paper, a little bit of white here and there. Then maybe some burnt umber with the orange to get some raw umber, burnt umber, raw umber. A little bit of burnt umber, raw umber again, a little bit of orange, and there we go. We just add some of that to the foreground here along the bottom. This is all going to lighten up. This is all going to lighten up. So just let this, now, once you get all that wash on here, you saw how fast that went. That was really quick. We added some fresh, clean water onto the paper, up in the sky, hit and miss, not everywhere, you know, here and there. Then we added a little more water to the foreground here. Pretty much we soaked the whole paper with water at the bottom here of the paper, the foreground, the field here in the front, the foreground, and that's it. Once that's in, we're going to leave this to dry for at least an hour. Or if you have a blow dryer, you can blow dry this and get back in and start working again. But I always say it's better to just let it dry naturally. But if you're just doing it as a composition, you're not really doing it for a finished painting, and like for a gallery show or for, you know, framing it to put it into a some sort of show or for a gift or for sale, you can use a blow dryer. So I use a blow dryer when I'm working on YouTube to speed up the process so I can keep going. It takes a lot of time to do these paintings, and I have a lot of stuff to do. So I tend to use a blow dryer. So use a blow dryer if you want to dry it off quick. But if it's going to be for a gift or a gallery show, or you're going to sell your painting, then you let it dry naturally for like maybe 1 or 2 hours. And then you come back in and do your over painting over the top of this. So this is the first wash, the first glazing. Let's do that. We'll let it dry. I'll take some tissue and I'll just go along the bottom here to get that excess up from the bottom of the painting. You don't want too much puddling there on the bottom. Does that make sense? Because if you have too much puddling on the bottom of the painting, it'll kind of seep up into the painting and make a little bit of a unpleasant looking blossom or cauliflower or bloom on the bottom of the painting. So you want to keep that in mind. When you see water puddling up at the bottom of your paper, try to lift it up with some tissue or paper towel. That's all. And I'm just trying to get that good up here, like that. Okay. Perfect. All right, let's come back in just a few minutes. We'll take a break. We're going to let this one completely dry 100%. If you're going to let it dry naturally, it takes usually about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. If you want to do a blow dryer to blow dry this off, it only takes 10 minutes or 5 minutes. So I'm going to take a break. I might take maybe a 10-15 minute break, and I'll do a little bit of the blow dryer on this, and we'll come back and we'll finish it up. We'll do the tree leaves, the foliage on the trees, we'll do the distant mountains, and we'll finish up, and you'll see how beautiful we can create a landscape really quickly, actually. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. And again, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. There's a button below here, right on the right hand side down here. You'll see that little red button that says subscribe. Subscribe, come on, subscribe. You'll get all our videos. We're doing videos every week here, so don't miss out. You do not want to miss out on our videos. We're doing at least one video a week, sometimes 2 or 3. And if you hit the notification bell when you subscribe, you'll be alerted when that video comes out. So when we're doing a new video each weekend, maybe it's a Saturday, a Sunday, maybe it's a Friday, whatever, you're going to be notified exactly when it comes out. And this way you can tune right in, watch it, and then you can start working along with us as we create our new paintings each week. Okay? All right, so let's come back in just a few minutes. We'll let this dry, and we'll finish up. All right, we're back again. We just took a break. We're coming back. We're going to start working again on our painting here, our beautiful landscape painting. So the first thing we did is we used our mop brush, and we got a beautiful first wash. We're doing the glazing technique, which is basically, in its most simple terms, you're doing a first wash over the entire painting in a lighter tonal value. So you're using more water, less paint, and you're getting a lighter tonal value, a lighter wash across the whole painting to set the pace for your painting. Then you let that dry 100%, maybe an hour or 2, overnight if you want, or you can come back a week later and paint on it. We used the blow dryer just now. I used the blow dryer to dry it off a little bit so that this is nice and dry, the whole painting. And now we're going to go over and we'll do our second glazing. Our second glazing is going to be the darker tonal values, which means less water, more paint when we're mixing on our palette here. So you'll see how we do that. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to use my Raphael brush here, number 6. We practice our trees again. You saw that in the video. We practiced our trees a couple times, 2 or 3 trees. We did a practice run, got back up into the swing of things of how we're going to create our trees, doing a circular motion and sort of holding our brush like this so we can get a really level shot at the paper with our brush like this, versus if we hold it like this. If we hold our brush like this, we're not going to get that flat side of the brush technique we need. So to get that side of the brush technique we need, we got to take our brush and turn it, or set it up so that we're holding it like this, so that it's almost just hovering over the paper flat like this. So that's the technique you want to use for your trees, for these type of trees in this type of a landscaping painting. Other trees you can paint different, obviously, but for this style painting, we're going to use this technique of holding our brush very close to the paper, parallel to the paper, and so that we get that technique we're looking for, that circular flow for the brush to get those gorgeous looking foliage on our trees. So let's start out here. Let's go in. We're going to get some sap green. Now here again, we're using way less water, much more paint. Burnt umber, sap green, maybe a little bit of olive green, raw umber, like that. You can see this is not too watery. This is very little water, much more paint. That's what you have to have when you go over your second glazing. Does that make sense? We're using our skills as a watercolor artist to say to ourselves, how much water and how much paint are we going to use at any given time on our watercolor painting? So on the first wash, when we did this first glazing, we used lots of water, not as much paint, to get that lighter wash. Now, as we do our subsequent glazings over the top of this light wash, we're using much more paint right out of the tube here, so much more paint right out of the tube, but not much water at all. And to achieve that, a great technique is to, when you rinse your brush in the our water container, once you rinse your brush off, you tap off the water, excess water, on a tissue or I use my apron. I wear an apron when I paint, so I tap that water off on my apron, but you can use a tissue or a paper towel, or you can set some sponges. You can have a sponge on the next to your container, your water container. Get off that excess water, then you go in and get your paint. This way you're not flooding your palette full of water, excess water that's flowing off your brush because you haven't checked off some water. So does that make sense? That's a real big part of watercolor, is making sure you don't have excess water in your brush when you're painting. Sometimes it doesn't matter. If you're using a light wash like this, you can have extra water in your brush. But when you're going in to do the darker darks on a second glazing, on a glazing technique style painting, you have to make sure you check off your excess water on your brush so that you don't have water flooding into your palette. So you can get really, really good, solid, moist paint without all that excess water. That's a big problem people seem to have. So let's not have that. Okay, and then we do that. We get that paint on there. Then we come over and we have our brush really flat towards the, and then we just do our circular patterns. And you don't have to do much. A couple spots here and there, like that. And it's almost just kind of, you can do a couple the other way. You can do circular patterns. I do circular patterns. I'll pick up a little more paint. There we go. Perfect. Looks good. Okay, then we're going to do another one here. Let's get over to the right over here. Let's do another one. This one's a little bit lighter. Again, circular motion. Take the brush, hold it more flat, and just do a couple like that. Leave lots of white paper in between the leaves. Perfect, look at that. Now, more sap green and raw umber, burnt umber, sap green. And then we're going to do some, kind of do the same thing, circular patterns. Then a couple of upward strokes like this. Like that. Maybe a couple over here. Like that. Couple more over here. Couple of little upstrokes like this. And that is good. Perfect. So now you can see how we just mixed up a real simple mix. Raw umber, burnt umber, a little bit of burnt umber, sap green, and you have your foliage color. Now let's take some more burnt umber into that there. A little bit of burnt, this is French ultramarine blue. And that is some Prussian blue, more burnt umber, like that. Now I'm going to take this, rinse this brush off, and now I'm going to go in and we'll get our number 10. needlepoint brush. I tap off the water once I rinse my needlepoint brush. And then we get some of that darker dark here. Let's do this first, this one here. I'll do the trunk of the tree first, like that. Get some indications of the trunk of the tree, like that. Doesn't have to be perfect. Then we start working out some branches here. Have fun with this, don't worry about it. Then you can move your hand up on the brush like so to get more of the finer branches. You don't want to be stressing too much. You want to get those loosely in. And as you can see, if you just do a few really loose, very fine lines with your number 10 needlepoint brush, you're going to be fine. That's all we needed right there, was just a couple of those. Like that. A little more burnt umber. We're going to mix up a little more. French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, burnt sienna, Prussian blue, touch of sap green. And we'll do the same thing here. We'll do some and just some really light indications of branches and twigs here and there, not too many. Like that. A couple here and there too over on these areas. Very few over here. I wouldn't do too many, just a couple. Same over here, just a couple indications of some, like that. Maybe a little bit of a shadow here and there. A little bit of that darker dark for some shadows here. Look at that, perfect. So now you're really getting the main part of the focal point of the painting are the trees, the exciting leaves of the trees, the branches. You can also take a little bit of you can take your round brush with a little bit of green. And this mix over here, same thing, same colors, burnt umber, sap green, French ultramarine blue, burnt sienna. Add a little more water to it so you can get a little bit of a splashing. And you can add a little bit of splashing to it. Just a little bit though, not too much. Don't get crazy with it. Try to aim it right at the areas of the leaves and the foliage of the trees, like that. And that just gives it a little more interesting detail. Like that. You can do a little bit of finger painting, a little bit of tapping with your finger here and there if you want to give it a little more lighter foliage feel here and there. Like that. Just like that. Perfect. Okay, now let's start putting in some blue mountains, purple, blue and purple. So we're going to use Prussian blue and purple. A little bit of burnt umber just to gray it down a little bit. Let's do some purple mountains back here. A little more purple. There we go. And so we're doing some of those beautiful purple mountains in the background, in the distance. You can see when I mixed up that color, I've been able to paint right on through. We mixed up plenty of paint, so we have plenty of paint to go. And look at that, a beautiful distant mountains. You can blot up a little bit here and there just to give a little bit of that misty, distant mountain look. Then we can go with a little darker. Let's let this dry a little bit for a few minutes. So we're going to take that purple color and still work it around here. It's going to dry lighter. You can blot up with a tissue to make it a little lighter if you want, but it should dry quite a bit lighter. Always remember, does this make sense? As a watercolor artist, you always know your washes are going to dry lighter. So if you put it on pretty dark like this, it's going to lighten up quite a bit, so don't worry. Go a little bit darker usually with your washes, because it always dries, usually about, I would say about 50% lighter. So when you put down a wash and it looks pretty dark, try to recall it's going to be about 50% lighter once it dries, approximately. And that's a good rule of thumb to keep in mind as you paint your washes. So you'll notice here it's going to dry lighter. There we go. So we have a beautiful landscape going here, some trees, some distant mountains. We'll make some buildings here in a few spots. Let's take some more of that blue, French ultramarine blue, purple, a little bit of raw umber. Let's see if we can make a couple of shadows across here. And we're just going to do some shadowing, just like that, with some light wash. Then we rinse our brush and we leave water in our brush and we use that water and just kind of we have some shadows here and there. There we go. Just some indication of some lines to make our foreground exciting. This is a fun painting to do. I'm going to splash on some more paint on the just like that. I could have left a little more white spaces here in this tree. I kind of filled it in a lot. It probably would have looked better with a little more white paper or the lighter wash showing through underneath. So recall that, sometimes doing trees like this, you want to leave lots of white paper showing through behind the tree. Sometimes it's like, here I did a little too much. I think I added too much paint, but it still looks okay. But it could look better if I used less paint and just made it look a little less heavy looking. It kind of looks a little bit like too much leaves on the tree, maybe. I'll let you be the judge of that. Okay, so now let's take another break. Breaks are good. And I always mention too, please, if you haven't subscribed, right there on the bottom of the right hand side here, you'll see there's a subscribe button. If you hit the subscribe button, the notification bell is to, if you hit the notification bell, it says all notifications. You click on all notifications. That means every time we create a new video, you're going to get a new video. You'll see it. You'll be able to follow along. And maybe too, you'll pick up your paints, your brushes, your paper, and you'll join along with us. I'm hoping you're going to join along each time we create a new video here on this channel, on my channel. I hope you're going to paint along with us and learn new things about watercolor. Keep painting, keep practicing the techniques, the methods that we show here, and you'll have a really fun time, a great time with us. And that's what we're doing, is really practicing. Your practice becomes your finished painting. So the more you practice, that's just going to be all the better, because that'll just translate into better paintings. So we'll take a break. We'll finish up with maybe some details on some buildings here in this distant area here in the mountains. We're going to maybe make a couple little buildings, maybe a church, and that should be it, really. We're pretty much have a good handle on this. We have a lot of this done already. So this is a gorgeous landscape. Let's have fun. We'll come right back and finish up. All right, we're back and we're finishing up this painting. We're we used the glazing technique on this painting. So as you can see, we did a really light wash across the whole painting first. We pencil sketched in first our horizon line and our trees. Just a little bit. We just made some indications of where our trees were going to be in this painting, this landscape. Then after that, we let that dry 100%, the first wash, the lighter wash. Now we just are completing our darker washes here, our second wash, our second glazing. You saw we put the trees on here. And I would say, can you see that? How I should have left a little less leaves on the trees. I think a little less leaves on the trees would have looked better. So I would say when you're going to try to paint this painting and do this composition, I would use less leaves and less foliage on your trees than I did here. I went a little overboard on the leaves. I think they look a little bit too much, too heavy, too much leaves on there. So if you can do less, I think it's going to look a little better. I definitely would say that. Sometimes I get carried away and I add too much paint to the paper, and I think I did that here. I added too much. I could envision this being less leaves, more light showing through the tree, like more light of the sky. So I think I added a little too much leaves in there. So you want to avoid making a big blotch of color of leaves on the paper. So the less leaves actually that you put on your trees, it's going to look actually better. So here I'm even saying that I added too much. So if you can use less than this, that'll look better. I think you try that and see how that works. But I really think it'll look better if you even use less leaves than I used on my trees here. But let's keep going. So let's finish up, and we're going to do a little darker French ultramarine blue, Prussian blue, burnt umber, burnt sienna, and we're going to do the distant Maybe there's going to be a nice church here with a steeple. Maybe we'll use our needlepoint brush to get a little more pointy, like that. And we're going to do our church over here, like that. And then I'll just take that and we'll use some cobalt blue maybe too. So back here in the distance we have a church building maybe. Like that. And over here maybe another building. Over here maybe just a So you create your own you can create your own buildings along here. And I'll just like that. Maybe we'll make it like so. And maybe a little bit of we could blot up a little bit of paint just to get a little bit of a and then maybe here we have a little bit of there's other hills here. Maybe it's more brown, gold. In the foreground, you can make some brownish gold hills here, maybe a little bit of French ultramarine blue with brown. That always gives it a nice feel of distance and three-dimensional depth. If you add in some hills like this, so these darker hills here push these hills in the distance, these blue and purple hills, back further. Doesn't that look good? Can you see that? So that looks really good. With some of these darker hills in the foreground, like that. You can add some color to it. You could even take some cadmium red, add some cadmium red here and there. Make a couple little spots of exciting cadmium red color. in your painting. Maybe a little bit of orange, cadmium orange. You can do that too. Here and there, if you just add in those little bit of exciting colors, it kind of gives the painting a little more excitement to it. So you can see I did that little bit of pops of color there. Here and there, a couple little taps of little colors. And that looks pretty good. Then we can also, again, purple. So I use the purple paint and then I add a little bit of water to it. And just kind of add some lines across here. You could tap up a little bit if you want. Tap up a couple spots here and there. But that looks pretty good. So I hope you'll try this landscape. Have a good time with it. Enjoy it. Again, it's really a simple process of glazing technique. You're going to get your light wash on first, the whole painting. Let it dry 100%, at least an hour and a half maybe. If you don't have a blow dryer, if you have a blow dryer, you can blow dry it and dry it quicker. You could also paint the light glazing first, let it dry overnight, come back in the next day, and or you could do it. You could do the light wash first and then wait a week, or even 2 weeks, or even as much as you want. But at least you have to let it go and dry at least an hour to two on your first light wash. You want to let that first light wash dry an hour or two, or you use a blow dryer for 10 or 15 minutes, and then you have it. You have it dry, and then you just go over it with your darker washes like we did here, as you can see. And it looks really good. We'll maybe peel off the tape here, and we'll also show this in the beginning of the video. So if you want to see the finished painting again, we can go back to the beginning of the video. But we can peel off the tape now and kind of see. I didn't seal my tape all that great, so that's kind of it's always good to really seal your tape really well along the bottom of your painting, around the whole border of your painting. Press it down really good. And there we have it. And we'll just move our palette, our paint box out of the way here. We'll move this over. We'll zoom in a little bit here. There we go. Okay, so you can see, again, we're trying to key in on the main idea of a super light wash first over the whole painting before we do any other darks like the trees or the mountains, anything like that. We want to get in that first whole light wash across the whole paper. Then once that dries 100%, 2 hours later, or if you have a blow dryer, you can dry it off quicker. Then you go in and we do our trees. And we do our mountain areas here in the back, those light bluish purple mountains, and then we do our darker darks for our buildings and churches and whatever structures you have in this middle distance area here. And that's really it. That's the painting. And then a couple darker shadow areas, maybe just here and there. We just did some darker shadows across the foreground here just to give the painting a little more excitement of some directional lines going through it here and there. But that's basically the painting. It's really fun. It's a landscape painting. You can't go wrong with landscape paintings. They're really fun. You can do these all day long. and have a fun time with it. You can get more creative with your skies if you want, more clouds, more puffy clouds if you want, more dynamic looking skies. This is pretty much a pretty, it's just a real kind of flat wash over the whole sky. I didn't do too much fancy, exciting things with the sky, but you can do more lights and darks in the sky, maybe mix up the tonal values a little bit, maybe leave some more white paper, but it's up to you. Have fun with it. We'll see you on the next video, and again, thanks for watching. Thanks so much for all your great comments, all your input, your well wishes, everybody. Thanks so much, and we'll see you on the next video. Okay? Talk to you soon.